Good day, everyone. Welcome to the Basketball Podcast of Mid-America. I am not Ethan Westerman. He is away with a flat tire. I am Anthony Christensen, making my podcast hosting debut in my quest to eventually take over all of Arkansas. But I am joined by the legend, Bob Holt, right across from me, and, of course, Blake Sutton behind the scenes. Bob, thank you for being here. Blake, thank you as well. How you guys doing?
I'm doing well. I slept in after I go to bed late after a late game. I think I went to bed about 3. Not like I'm doing anything crazy on Dixon Street. I'm just watching highlights and watching the SEC Now roll over about the 5th straight time on the replays on the SEC network. But I'm feeling good.
And Blake, how are you doing back there?
I'm doing pretty good. Didn't get to watch the game. My daughter, she's 2, and she's going through this phase right now where she wants me to lay next to her crib until she falls asleep. And if I try to get up, she'll know and she'll say, "Daddy, come back, lay down." And last night I thought she was all the way down, and I'm standing up, and then my ankle popped whenever I stood up.
Ooh.
And she wakes up and she's like, "Daddy, lay down." So it started the whole process over again. So hopefully it's just a phase and I don't have to do that every single night.
Yeah.
So you actually hurt your ankle?
No, it just popped. Whenever I stood up, it was like pop, pop.
I didn't know if that was like a Dre Greenlaw moment or something. Dre, unfortunately, tore his Achilles running onto the field. Not making light of that at all. Really freaky injury. But my guess is if you gave Arkansas fans the choice of laying next to a crib or watching that game last night, they might have taken the crib option.
Yeah, I don't think it was. I don't think I really missed too much.
No, I don't think you did either, because that game stunk. I'm not breaking any news. Obviously, the Razorbacks lost 92-63 to a very good Tennessee team, not to take anything away from the Vols. But, I mean, really, it was the only reason they didn't match the worst loss at Bud Walton Arena, which, mind you, was last month, was the 32-point game against Auburn, was because of a garbage time and one from Joseph Pinion. They scored 18 second-half points before the starters were pulled. Just all around really bad, particularly in the second half. First half, was competitive, fun to watch and all that. But the second half was just, oof. But I mean, I'd be remiss to mention if, last time we had a podcast, they've beaten Georgia since then. So maybe it's not all negatives. They're going to finish with more SEC wins than they did in John Pelfrey's second season. But, I don't know that we can really focus too much on that just because of how bad the Tennessee game was last night. So, Bob, you kind of talked a lot about it after the game, but, obviously scheduling and everything has been tough. But, I just wanted to ask you, can you just talk about, did you ever see this team kind of having, this rough of a stretch? And obviously they can turn it around. They've turned it around a lot, in recent years, but it doesn't really look like that's going to happen. But did you ever see it kind of getting this low?
No, not at all. I mean, I'm an AP voter. I had Arkansas number 10 in my poll, and I wasn't alone. I think some voters had them as high as 7. They were 14th in the preseason poll. The coaches, who presumably are smarter than the media, had them 14th. Arkansas was picked 2nd or 3rd behind Tennessee and maybe Kentucky or A&M in preseason polls. Of course, South Carolina was picked 14th. Goes to show you a lot of times preseason polls don't mean much. But no, I think everybody, Blue Ribbon, who I think is probably about the best publication out there if you're looking for, preseason dope on college teams, they had Arkansas 8th. It's a very well-respected publication. And so Eric Musselman and his staff obviously didn't see this coming, or else they wouldn't have recruited these guys and put the team together the way they did. So I think you have to say if you take expectations, which can be unpredictable with the results thus far, Arkansas has to be one of the most disappointing teams in the country. I mean, there are some other ones out there. USC's had a bad year. Michigan State's had a disappointing year considering they were top 5. There are some others. But, Arkansas, I don't think anybody saw this coming. And they've got a tough close here, having to play at Kentucky and at Alabama and going to Mississippi State this Saturday. And it's hard to see Arkansas avoiding playing Wednesday night and Nashville, which means to win the tournament, the SEC tournament, which I think is their only way into the NCAA tournament at this point, they'd have to win 5 games in 5 days. They haven't been able to put together back-to-back SEC wins. So you never know. Arkansas won its lone SEC tournament title in 2000 with a team that had Joe Johnson, a guy that played like 17, however many seasons in the NBA. I still wouldn't rule out a comeback from Joe. He'll come back at 50 or something. Had some other real good players like Brandon Dean, Teddy Gibson. This team does not have a Joe Johnson, I can tell you that. Anybody can tell you that. And so it's hard to see Arkansas, turning this thing around. I think there are a couple wins out there because they get Missouri and Vanderbilt here. Maybe they'll have a shot at LSU, but it's hard to see them finishing over 500, honestly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was actually texting a good buddy of mine not too long ago. Shout out my friend Nate. He's a real college basketball sicko just like myself, and he said, I think the Arkansas Linsanity run's about to come, and I just told him I don't think it is, my friend, even though I've only been here for a little bit. But I think one of the big things that I really noticed last night, and I've only covered one other home game, this season. I've been to Bud Walton before this year, and what you kind of associate with Bud Walton Arena is just kind of the raucous atmosphere that kind of comes with it. Last night, particularly in the second half, it kind of was really flat. A lot of people were leaving. The shark-themed student section was kind of dissipating a little bit. But can you just talk about, I guess that sense of apathy? Is that something that you've kind of seen at any point in recent years? And just kind of what is that like for you to kind of see at this point?
Well, yeah, Bud Walton's one of the best home court advantages. And you think about the Duke atmosphere this year was great. When Arkansas beat number 1 Auburn a couple of years ago, stormed the court. I'm not a big court storming guy. I'm not trying to be a grumpy old man, get off my lawn, get off my court. But really, I think at some point we're going to get some people hurt, some players or fans, unfortunately. But, yeah, Arkansas, Bud Walton Arena has a great atmosphere, but, the fans aren't, there's loyalty, and I think they support their Hogs through good times and bad, but, you have to use common sense. It's an 8 o'clock game. It's Valentine's Day. I think if Arkansas didn't have to be ranked in the top 10, but I think if Arkansas was having a solid year, that place would have been packed out. Mm-hmm. I've seen games where the weather was really bad, icy roads, snow. A lot of teams you think, well, they'll be lucky to get 3,000 or 4,000 people, and they've gotten 15,000, 16,000. Arkansas fans are very loyal. Mm-hmm. But, they're also smart, I think. I think they're and this team, I think, has disappointed a lot of people. They're not fun to watch a lot of times. That was a fun first half, like you alluded to, a lot of scoring. But, I think Arkansas fans are as loyal as anybody, but I also think they're not idiots. I think they're smart and they know their basketball, and it's hard to come out and watch this team right now.
And talking about the game itself, obviously, I think Arkansas actually defended the perimeter pretty well, which has been a huge concern, throughout the season. But you sacrifice, your rim protection for the good perimeter defense. It seems. Can you just talk about, what you saw, from that interior defense, and why you kind of feel that Tennessee had so much success, kind of getting into the paint and having so much success in there?
Well, yeah, Arkansas, I can't tell you how many times I'd look back at transcripts, post-game transcripts, and we'd ask Eric Weil the 3-point defense, and he'd say, fill in the blank, reporter Bob, Anthony, whoever asked the question. We haven't defended the 3 all year, and that was a pretty common theme. And they defended pretty well against Georgia, and they did a pretty good job last night. But yeah, the paint points, they just got destroyed. Tennessee was really getting whatever kind of shot they wanted, whether it was a clear path to the basket, whether it was a dunk, whether it was a rebound. I think they had 9 dunks, and Jonas Adu had a great game. He came in averaging, he's a good player. He came in averaging 11 points, I think 7 boards. He had 23 and 12. Eric Musselman just gushed about him, how improved he is, and how much better his shot is. Because he was hitting some shots, not just dunks, although, and he's 11 of 14. When you have 5 dunks, your shooting percentage goes up. But Tennessee was just getting inside way too easy. They were getting fouled. So, yeah, the paint points, it wasn't quite as bad. I think Auburn was 48-18, and last night was, I think, 48-22. So not quite as bad, but pretty bad. Tennessee really owned the paint. That's why they shot nearly 60%. And Arkansas just really had no answer for them inside, and that was the tail of the game. And Tennessee shot 9 more free throws, which, that upset Eric Musselman. He wasn't going to criticize the officials. he's always careful not to do that, but directly. But he talked about how Tennessee, opponents average about 22 free throws a game. Arkansas is fifth nationally, I think, with about 29 attempts. They thought they could get 30. They got 15. So he says, sort of not laughing like he's happy, but more frustrated, is that, well, I guess we got to play better through contact because Tennessee's very physical. That was his way of basically saying, hey, we got knocked around. We didn't get the call even at home. So that was upsetting to him. So Arkansas got beat inside really bad, and then, most time they get more free throws. They didn't get to the line very much. I think it was 11 of 15, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, 11 to 15. They got to get a lot more than that to have a shot against Tennessee.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned Jordan Adu. I saw him hit a mid-range shot, and I was just like, I didn't even know he had that in his bag. Obviously, I did know that, but it's not like he's known for his mid-range game. But, just kind of talking about it, when did you kind of maybe start to feel that things were maybe different this year than previous years? Because obviously, Arkansas has kind of gone through a trend in recent years where they have a little bit of a slump, but you always know that they're going to come back. When did you maybe start to feel that maybe that wasn't going to be on the cards?
Well, the first red flag was actually before they went to the Bahamas. They lost at home to North Carolina Greensboro, which is a good mid-major. Last time I looked, I think UNC Greensboro was about 18-8, and they lost their big guy, whose name escapes me, but he had a big game here. Hyphenated names, I think Jones Brown or Brown Jones. I'm sorry, I should know that because they won the game. And they went to the Bahamas and didn't play real well there. Had a lead over North Carolina, but then couldn't hold on, got beat by 15. Then when they came home and beat Duke, you thought, okay, they've righted the ship, everything's going to be good. But then when they got blown out by Auburn, I mean, Auburn's good. They're better than people thought. But when you get just, a beat down like that in Walton Arena, you say, wow, And there were just too many games where guys are saying afterwards, and I give them credit for honesty, is that we need to play harder or we quit. We didn't play hard enough. I mean, no matter what your talent level is, playing hard should not be negotiable. I mean, you should always play your hardest at SEC. If you don't, you're going to get embarrassed like they have in some games. So I think that losing to Greensboro at home, that was bad, but getting just waylaid by Auburn at home, you thought, wow, this is different. And Eric, he warned us. He said things like, these guys don't have the same characteristics as my other teams in terms of grittiness and buying in on defense and those kinds of things. So, but I don't think anybody saw this coming.
Yeah, no, obviously I'm new, and tried to keep up with all the college basketball landscape, but even I was like, especially after that Duke game, that was one of the ones I was just kind of watching just to watch. I was like, all right, they're about to turn the corner. They're about to be the Arkansas we all know, and obviously that has not been the case. I do kind of want to mention, and can maybe kind of shout him out, L. Ellis. Obviously, it's not easy to kind of go and talk to media after a game like that. And I know, talking to a buddy of mine who covers Louisville, he had to do that a lot there, especially last season, with how bad Louisville was, and he had to kind of take the brunt of that. So I want to shout him out, just kind of thank him for being good to all of us media people. But just kind of talking about Arkansas, just kind of this season, what do you think maybe should be, I guess, the goal the rest of the season? Because, like you mentioned, it doesn't look like there's a real clear path to the NCAA tournament, barring the auto bid. What do you think should be, I guess, the main focal point of the rest of this year?
This may sound real simple, but just go out there and play your hardest, and especially on defense. I talked to a former player I really respect, and a couple of weeks ago, and said, "What do you think they need to do?" And he said, "Guard." I mean, there's one guard, play defense, in other words. And that's something that's, I mean, you can talk about you don't have great height, you don't have great quickness, whatever, effort. I mean, you or I mean, I'm not going to speak for you. I obviously no athlete, but if I'm out there, whatever I'm doing, I can do my hardest. I can try my best. I mean, it sounds kind of simple or cliche, or like your parents telling you how to approach the math test or whatever, but I would just like to see them give maximum effort, because when you saw it against Kentucky, and they lost, but they really gave Kentucky a good game. And I think fans left the arena feeling better, feeling good. They gave good effort at Missouri, and even though that was 91-84, that really wasn't a close game. A&M and Georgia, those were a very close loss or close wins at home, and they had a 12-point lead in Georgia, and Georgia came back and took the lead, and A&M actually came back and took the lead, being down 20. But at the end, Arkansas made the plays to win those games. And, A&M may be an NCAA tournament team. They're definitely talented enough. Georgia is much, much better. Mike White's a really good coach. Buzz Williams is a really good coach. So those are good wins. I'm not saying it's like, beating Tennessee or Kentucky, or I never thought I'd be saying this, South Carolina, but those are good wins. So they've had some good wins. They've given good effort. I think they just need to do that on a consistent basis. And maybe they think they're playing hard, but they need to just play like their lives depend on it, or like if they win the game, they're going to go to the NCAA tournament. We know that's not true, but, show some pride, play for your future, whether that's having a shot to play overseas or in the G League or getting an NBA tryout, or does this Arkansas staff want you back, or does some other staff going to want you in the portal? So I think there's a lot to play for. They're kind of like, NBA or NFL players who are playing for a team that's struggling, but they used to call, baseball, they call it salary drive. A guy trying to finish strong to set up his next contract. So, NIL and scholarships are now kind of contracts. I guess there's a Dartmouth players that want to sue to be the National Labor Relations Board to be employees. So I think you want to impress, your next employer, whether that's where you are or someplace else. So I think they still have a lot of motivation to play well, down the stretch. And plus, they practiced here since June or whatever, and they practice all week. So the games are supposed to be fun. So, go out there and have some fun and play hard. That's simple. Go out and have fun and play hard. That would be my advice.
All right, we're going to cut to a quick break. When we come back, Blake's going to give us another rendition of Stump the Bob, and you're not going to want to miss that, so be sure to stay with us.
Get the latest breaking news on all Arkansas Razorback sports at WholeHogSports.com. Our award-winning reporters and photographers go beyond game recaps to bring our subscribers the most trusted Razorbacks news anywhere. With expert analysis, the latest in recruiting, plus unique and compelling stories of your favorite teams. Subscribe today at WholeHogSports.com.
And we are back. Welcome back. Thanks for sticking with us. Thanks for sticking with us through a tough Arkansas men's basketball season. But without further ado, we've got – I hit the thing. We've got Stump the Bob. Blake, please take it away.
All right, Bob. So the standings right now, you're 0-3, but you have 2 side points that you picked up last week. You still got those in your pocket. Today's question is worth 3 points. So you could get back to 500 if you get this one right, okay?
Okay, I got Final Jeopardy right yesterday watching Jeopardy.
Oh, nice. Okay, so Eddie Sutton, no relation to me, legendary Arkansas coach. Can you name one of Eddie Sutton's assistant coaches while he was at Arkansas?
Oh, yeah, it's easy. Gene Cady.
Ding, 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 ding.
I could name
You got it.
a lot of them. That was an easy one.
Hey, keep going.
Well, he had Gene Cady and Pat Foster on his first staff. That's a Hall of Fame staff, because Eddie Sutton's a Hall of Famer, Gene Cady's a Hall of Famer. Pat Foster, who Eddie retained from Lonnie Van Emen's staff, he had a really good run as a head coach at Lamar and Houston, and he was coach at Nevada. So Pat Foster is a really good coach. And then later on he had James Dickey, who won a good thing I'm dating myself here, but Big 8 title at Texas Tech and had a Sweet 16 team. He coached Houston. You had Bill Brown. You had Fred Trinkle. And maybe most of them.
I picked a good one today.
Yeah, that was one. That was the one I knew.
Well, that gets you to 3-3. You still have those 2 side points. You could use one now to get to 4-3. I wouldn't recommend that. You want to keep those side points for as long as possible for when we get to the end of the season. If you're in the negative, you can use those to even out your score or to get positive. So
Okay.
So we'll say you're 3-3 for now.
I'll say my phone a friend, too.
Yeah.
All right, so before our next podcast, Arkansas, the men's basketball team has obviously 2 games at Mississippi State and at Texas A&M. Bob, you talked a little bit to Eric about scheduling last night, and obviously how it's kind of been tough for Arkansas with obviously playing off the bye, early road game, et cetera, et cetera. Can you just talk about a little bit about that and maybe preview a little bit of what Arkansas's got coming up?
Yeah, for the second time, I guess in 3 weeks, Arkansas has a late midweek game and then has to go on the road. A couple weeks ago, they played at Missouri in the 8 o'clock game, one of their better games. Of course, you have to take it with a grain of salt. As Mizzou grads, we have to admit that Missouri basketball is not good this year. That's one thing, Arkansas fans out there, you could be Missouri.
Yeah.
You could be worse. But we know academics are the priority at Missouri. We're not a football or basketball factory.
Big J school guys.
And then they went to LSU, who'd had a whole week off and got hammered. They lost 95-74, but they were down by 29, and LSU really put it on them. And then Georgia, when Arkansas beat Georgia last week, Arkansas had a full week off, and Georgia played the late game Mississippi State and lost, and they had to come to Arkansas. They played very competitive. And if you look around the league, Auburn had to go to Florida when Florida had a week off, and Florida beat them pretty decisively. So now Arkansas plays the late game, 8 o'clock last night, at home, better than playing on the road. And when they played at LSU, they had an 11 a.m. game. So they probably got home from Columbia that Wednesday night, I'm going to guess, by the time they were getting to their apartments. And I don't know what time these guys go to bed, but they probably didn't get to bed till 2 or 3 in the morning, I'm guessing. Hopefully they all got up early to go to their classes, and like we did. And then they had to play at LSU at 11. So that's a real quick turnaround. And then played a late game last night, but at home, and now they got to play Mississippi State at 1. So Eric talked about, unless you're a coach or a player, you don't realize how those extra 4 or 5 hours can make a difference, because I'm guessing they didn't have a shoot-around at LSU with an 11 a.m. game. I don't know if they'll have a shoot-around at Mississippi State. So Arkansas is having to do that twice, play the Wednesday game, late Wednesday game, and then early Saturday game. And Eric and Bruce Pearl mentioned this too. If you're going to have to go on the road, especially, but if you have to play a Saturday game against a team that's had the bye, the SEC should let you play on Tuesday night, not Wednesday, and certainly not a late game. But everything's dictated by TV. And before the season, Tennessee-Arkansas looked like a pretty attractive TV game. And so they put them in the prime slot. And South Carolina-Auburn looked like an awesome game. and Auburn won by 40. So they got a couple stinkers in the SEC last night. But, and Eric's, he talks about he don't want to get fined, so he's not going to be critical. He said no excuses. We play the schedule or whatever he said. I think he put it that way. But it's not easy. I mean, I guarantee he's not happy about having to do that once, let alone twice. And I was looking it up last night because I couldn't go to sleep. And I think when a team has a midweek game and plays a team on Saturday that didn't have a midweek game, that team that had the bye is 4-1. Vanderbilt, I don't know, maybe this is the way they should do it. Tennessee and Vandy both had a bye, and then Tennessee won at Vandy. So it's a big advantage to have that bye, especially when you're playing a team that played a late game Wednesday. So, it's not going to be easy to play at Mississippi State anyway, but with the scheduling, that just makes a tough situation even harder, the way I look at it.
Mm-hmm. And talking about Mississippi State, obviously they've missed Tolu Smith for a long time. But, I mean, they've got a lot of weapons on that team. I mean, got Josh Hubbard, Cameron Matthews, a lot of really good players on that team. Chris Jan's obviously a really good defensive coach as well in his second season at Mississippi State. Has them kind of, I would say, probably on the right side of the bubble. I'm not on the committee, so I can't really say. But can you just talk about this Mississippi State team, what you think their weapons are, and, what to look forward to in this game?
Yeah, one thing to get out of the way, Mississippi State's really dominated Arkansas in recent games. In the last 10 games in the series, Mississippi State is 8-2. That is, I don't think most people even, and I cover the freaking league, and that surprises me. Arkansas has got a better record, I think, the last 10 games against Kentucky than Mississippi State. For whatever reason, Mississippi State's had Arkansas's number. They came into Walton Arena last year and knocked off Arkansas when Arkansas was rolling pretty good. Ben Howland, who had a great coach at Pitt and UCLA, went to some Final Fours at UCLA. He had a good record against Arkansas for whatever reason. So I know there's some different players, but actually Mississippi State's got a lot of experienced players. You alluded to Tolu Smith. He missed like the first 12 games, but he's back now, and he's averaging 16-8 and 8-3, so almost a double-double. So he's a really tough guy inside. And they've got Shaquille Amore. He's a transfer from North Carolina State that's been there like 3 years. Really good, solid player. They're strong inside. They're very good defensively. I'm looking, they're averaging over 8 steals a game, holding opponents to about 40% shooting, 29% on threes. So that'll be interesting to see. I assume Eric's mantra will be take it inside, paint points, get to the line. If you're shooting a lot of threes, you're probably coming out of the game. But that kind of kept him in the Tennessee game for a while. As bad as it was, it could have gotten worse as far as I hadn't hit some threes. But so, yeah, you're looking for a veteran team. They start 4 seniors. I think out of their top 6 players, I'm talking about graduate guys, older guys. Arkansas's got some older guys too, but these guys have been at Mississippi State for a while, And so it's going to be, they've had the bye. They're 5 and 6 in the league. So, like you say, I think they're on the right side of the bubble. But, this isn't something you'd normally say, but losing to Arkansas could really be damaging. I don't know that beating Arkansas at your place is going to, give you a huge boost in the net. But losing to them could be like an anchor around your neck. And so they should be very motivated to win this game. Arkansas still has the name. It's a name program. It's a big deal to beat them, even though sometimes you play the program and not the team, Mm-hmm. And Arkansas is struggling as a team, but it's still a storied program. And I think Mississippi State should be very motivated to get back to 500 in the league. They say it's not going to be a huge boost if they win, but it could be a potentially very damaging loss in when the committee's looking at March, depending on how their season plays out. So they've got a lot of reason to play well, and Arkansas is not in a good place right now, so that's going to be a very tough game for Arkansas, I believe.
Yeah, Mississippi State obviously holding opponents to, I believe, about 67 points a game. Anytime you can hold opponents to fewer than 70 points, you got a good defensive scheme going on. Obviously, Tolu Smith, one of the more fun guys to watch in the league. A lot of fun guys to watch on this Mississippi State team. And then we got Texas A&M as well, a team that Arkansas has beaten in SEC play. Obviously, not a lot of those. Really fun game to watch. That was actually the first game I had watched after I had accepted this job. Couldn't have announced that I was coming yet, but I watched that game and had a good time watching it. It was an entertaining basketball game, kind of back and forth. Obviously, Arkansas kind of blew a big lead, but obviously won in the end. Anytime you can watch a buzzer beater, it's fun. But can you just talk about, the Aggies?
Well, the Aggies they haven't had as a disappointing year as Arkansas, but they've been disappointing. They were ranked in the top 20 in virtually every poll I saw. Had a lot of players back, Wade Taylor and Tyrese Radford and Buzz Williams is a good coach. Finally took them to the NCAA tournament last year. They had a lot of COVID issues in the COVID year, missed a lot of games. But A&M's kind of a hard team to figure out. They lost at home to LSU to open it, conference play. I believe that was the opener. Then they went to LSU and won. Then they beat Tennessee by 16 last Saturday, handed the Vols their worst loss. Didn't do the Hogs any favors there. Tennessee, all their losses had been pretty tight until that one. Then they go on the road and lose at Vanderbilt. And, any road game's tough, but still, Vanderbilt has been one of the worst teams in the league. And the Aggies lost on the last second shot, kind of like they did – well, not kind of like they did at Arkansas. I think a guy hit a shot falling down. And so they've had some head-scratching losses. They've had some really good non-conference wins, too. So they're fighting for an NCAA tournament bid. Arkansas has had a lot of trouble winning down at College Station. Eric Musselman has not won down there. I think he's 0-3. They didn't play down there the COVID year because the Aggies, had to cancel the game eventually. But that's a tough place to play. Reed Arena, kind of an old arena. I don't think they have any skyboxes, but the students come out, and that's an old Southwest Conference rivalry, so that'll be a real tough game. That's not a game you expect Arkansas to win. If they do go down to College Station and win, that'd be a big upset.
And I do want to mention at Texas A&M, Missouri Valley transfer from UIC, Jace Carter. I covered the Missouri Valley before I came here. I had to throw it in there.
That's the guy that Tremont Mark hit the game-winning shot over.
Yes, he did. Very fun player to watch. Got to see him a couple of times, obviously covering Evansville last season. But going back to the Tennessee game, as I mentioned earlier, I'd be remiss to not give Tennessee its flowers. That's a really good team. I think everybody, if they didn't know that already, found that out yesterday. I think that's a team, if all their cards play out in their favor, get good matchups in the tournament, I think that's a team with Elite Eight, Final Four potential. Obviously, Tennessee has had a history of kind of falling short a couple of times here and there. But I just wanted to ask you, what do you think about that Tennessee team and how far they can go?
They're really good. I mean, that's one thing about Arkansas. They've had a rough season, but they've played a good schedule. I mean, look at the teams they've lost to, especially at home. Auburn ranked, South Carolina ranked, Kentucky ranked, Tennessee ranked, lost in the Bahamas to North Carolina, beat Duke somehow. But, yeah, I think Tennessee's a very complete team. Dalton Connect, I got to admit, I didn't know much about the guy. Transferred from Northern Colorado. The first time he was really on my radar, the day after Arkansas beat Purdue in the exhibition game that now has probably everybody shaking their heads going, what the hell happened? That Sunday on ESPN, Tennessee played an exhibition game, Michigan State, who was ranked in the top 5, and Tennessee beat them. And I'd have to look at the box score, but Connect had he looked really good. And I thought, man, this guy's better than I thought. And then you add him to a returning cast of, Josiah Jordan-James. He seems like he's been there forever. And of course, Zakai Ziegler, he tore his ACL late last season against Arkansas. He looks really good again. Vescovi's been there forever. He didn't have a particularly good game, but he's a really good player. And then we talked about Adu had a big game. They've got good size. They shoot well. They play real good defense. They're older. They're strong. They really manhandled Arkansas physically. And some of those guys, Connect's a new guy, but they've got a core of guys that have been together for a while, which is very rare these days, who've been together. They've got 2 guys that have been there like 4 years. That's very rare. And so I really like Tennessee's team. I think they could go to a Final Four now. A lot of it's about matchups and, not getting cold on the wrong day or a team you're playing getting hot. But I think Tennessee is as good as anybody.
There we go, and that is actually all the time we've got. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. From myself, Anthony Christensen, Bob Holt, Blake Sutton, and the absentee Ethan Westerman. Thank you all for tuning in to the Basketball Podcast of Mid-America. Shout out Detroit Mercy for getting that first win of the season last night. Only one winless team in men's basketball left. That's Mississippi Valley State. Thank you all. Hit that again. Thank you all again for tuning in. We'll see you next week.